so this is an interesting one because this is made in Erie, right?
Yeah, this is made up in
This
Erie.
is Red Tail Blended Whiskey from Altered State. This is batch number 1. It's a blend of a malted rye and a straight rye.
Yes.
80-20.
I believe
80-20, 3 year and 8 month.
Yeah, it's a very young whiskey, but it's a very interesting one.
Yeah, and so just looking at it, it's very light.
It's light. It smells young, but it doesn't smell hot.
No, it has you get a slight ethanol, but not a ton.
Yeah, it
smells more like an Irish whiskey than an American.
Exactly, and that's where I find it interesting.
That's where the youth comes from. So because American whiskey is all made in new oak, the younger it is, the more it's going to taste like a Scotch or an Irish whiskey, just because of how the oak hits it.
Right.
But this smells young, but it doesn't.
I don't have a lot of
hot.
experience with whiskey that young.
But yeah, that's.
It's interesting.
The nose.
Nothing super stands out to me.
It's malty,
it's very
beer
malty.
Beer malty.
Yes.
It's like a powdery note, not baby powder, but
cocaine. Never cocaine would be giving us a different feeling.
I have no idea what cocaine smells like.
Yeah, I don't know what that smells like, Max.
Yeah, make me seem like I'm the only one who does dumb shit.
Kind of has a menthol kind of smell.
It does. Yeah,
I could definitely get
And a little grassy, just a little grassy.
That's not really hot.
I don't know if it's because we've been drinking stuff before this or what.
I don't
know.
know.
It's really not even just drink because I've had this.
We've sat for a bit and I've cleared my palate with water.
Yeah, so I've had this before. Having this be my only drink of the evening. It's not hot.
It
really
tastes
for what it is.
like it wants to be a single malt, but it's not quite there.
No. Although this does have a bit of a Kentucky hug, so I question if this would be hot if we had it fresh.
Right. It also.
It wasn't. I will say it wasn't.
Okay.
I was gonna say, for it being a blend of malted rye and straight rye, it does not taste like a rye.
Yeah.
At all. It
No,
tastes like
it
a
is
single.
supposed to be a single malt.
It tastes the malt.
The malt really
everything.
comes through.
There's a weird note too. It's not cocoa, but it's reminiscent of cocoa. I don't know what it is. Also, this has a really serious Kentucky hug.
Yeah, it does.
There's no heat on the
What's the
mouth.
proof on it?
It's got to be 90.
92, I think.
86.
86. That's a real serious Kentucky hug for 86.
Right?
Fuck.
I wonder what an aged version of this would do.
An aged version of this probably wouldn't have any heat at all.
Fair. Yeah, at 86, this really is not hot, especially for a young craft whiskey.
How long has this been opened?
Probably 6 months.
That might have something to do with it. Okay, no. Now I'm starting to get some rye off of it now. That's starting to get some of that roasty.
It comes
strong
in
rye.
more on the finish. It doesn't come in on
Yeah.
the palate at all. It comes in on the
It is more of a.
What it
finish,
leaves
yeah.
behind is I get a lot of brown sugar, cinnamon.
You're getting brown sugar. I don't get
I'm
any
getting
brown
brown
sugar.
Yeah, I don't get a ton of. I don't
I'm
get a ton of
getting a
sweet
little
from
brown
this.
sugar.
Like I
I'm
would
getting
say,
a lot more cinnamony.
if I had to say sweet, I would say like malted milk ball sweet, whatever that.
Okay.
I don't really
I
get
can see
brown
that.
sugar.
Yeah.
It's like we're jerking a milk dud.
A little bit.
Why did I think you said jerking?
Your
You
brain is obviously on something else
underestimate
right now.
My brain's on leaving here and doing
Ouch.
some other activities.
No,
Like
but-
jerking.
Yes, welcome to the joke.
Go with the joke. We'll be showing you to your table shortly. Have you had time to look over the menu?
No, I haven't. I'm hungry. What do you recommend?
Dick. Some ass on the side.
I'll give you a nickel for your nickel.
said, we're all mostly sober. So
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm not bad. We've been drinking for 4 hours now. It's 10:30. We got here at 6:30.
shit,
We started
yeah.
drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're not drunk really.
we've been pacing it pretty well. I've been having bigger pours of some of the stronger stuff, and I'm still good.
Yeah, I'm proud of us.
I don't think I would drive, but
Oh, I could definitely drive.
I could drive.
I just wouldn't trust myself.
Yeah,
to.
I mean, I can drive, yeah.
This is
Such an
this is
interesting
so
one.
different than everything we've had.
It is.
It's such a unique, and that's,
ever.
This bottle was given to me as a gift, and I knew nothing about it. And as something that I didn't pick out and I didn't, seek out, it is such an interesting bottle to have on the shelf. And being that it's batch 1 as an experiment from this company who clearly didn't know what the fuck they were doing, for a young whiskey, it's really good.
Like, all things considered, it's good. It's really interesting.
You want to know what I think they did? I think that they distilled it an extra time relative to other craft distilleries.
That's possible.
That's very possible.
That's what I think they did because
You definitely don't get that heat that you get from a typical young craft distillery.
I think that they distilled it in one extra time.
I would like to say that they probably. I don't want to say that they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. I would say they did, but they decided they wanted to be really experimental with how they did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I think, for the taste this is going for, this has to be exactly what they were hoping for.
Yeah,
Because it's really solid for exactly what you're.
It's so
what
much
it
more
says.
malty than it is rye, even though it's a blend of a malted rye and a straight rye.
It's still.
It's got to be a malted rye whiskey that's giving it that taste. Like
That has to be the 80%.
yeah, without a doubt.
And you have to it's amazing to me though how much, because it's not, you're not getting the rye, even though the majority of the mash bill of this would be rye.
Mm.
You don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, would I buy a bottle? I don't know, because this is such a out there taste.
I want to say this is in the 60 to 65 range price wise.
Honestly, for how unique it is, I would never say that I would want to reach for this. This would be one of those fun things you taste and then you just remember it, but you don't necessarily reach for
Right, or
it.
it's one of those things where if you're gifted a bottle,
You don't complain.
unless you start drinking to the point where you consistently want or crave it, I couldn't see buying this.
No.
But I will say,
and that's not a statement on the quality. That's a statement on it's so unique that you have to want this.
Yes. This
And
is one of
You
those
have to
things.
want exactly this.
Yeah.
and as as the person who has the bottle, I'm a bourbon guy more than I'm a rye guy. I do like both of them. This isn't either of those, and it's one of those bottles where I've maybe had 2 or 3 glasses out of this in the 6 months it's been open.
Because you need to be in a mood for it.
Exactly.
You
And
need to want this. It's
and
not you want
usually-
something like this because there isn't something like this. It's I want that altered state. Rare
Usually I'm like, okay, I want a rye, or okay, I want a bourbon, and I pick one out of my cabinet. Not, I want a weird rye malty young craft thing.
Right. This touches every base of bizarre. It's good.
It's really good,
It's really
and I
good
like
for
it.
what it is, but you have to want
Yes.
Yes.
I will say this though, if I got this as a gift and I expected a shitty craft whiskey, I would be thoroughly pleased with it.
And,
Oh,
and that's exactly how I feel
that.
about
And
it.
that's the thing. It's not what we're saying isn't saying that it's bad at all. It's
It's-
actually really good for exactly what it's supposed to be. But what it's supposed to be is really fucking weird, and you have to want that.
It's one of those things where you buy the first, if you're not getting the first bottle as a gift, you buy the first bottle, and then you determine from there if it's worth it after that. Because
Right.
I'm one of those people who will spend the extra money to try something for the first time.
Right, I almost wanted to buy the Stranahan's Sherry Cask.
Yeah.
It's one of those that Sherry Cask single malt. That's really interesting for an
Mhm.
American whiskey.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested in a few years to try a later batch of this. Try
To see if they refine
once
it.
once
see
they've
what
had a
they-
few batches under their belt. See what they've done with it, and see if it's been refined. a
If
little
they
more.
do anything, this could just be one of their I
Yeah.
know a lot of craft distilleries do experiments that they never make again.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is once this bottle is empty, keep that bottle.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a very cool looking bottle
It
too,
is.
personally. But
I mean, with their other spirits, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They make some really good base gins and vodkas and stuff like that.
Well,
And
gin
rums.
and vodka is easy to make. You distill it a couple extra times.
Oh,
and-
I'm not saying that
yeah, you can
Yeah.
run fucking Vladimir vodka through a Brita pitcher 6 times, and it'll taste like fucking Tito's.
yeah, it will.
yeah.
I know someone who's done it. It'll ruin the Brita filter,
But-
it
I'm saying
tastes
it
great.
ruins Brita
But-
filter, but
but
yeah,
at,
it's
at the same time, like it still takes something to make one that tastes good
Yeah.
yeah,
right off the
absolutely.
bat. Even though it's easier, you still have to get that far.
True.
And you still have to make something solid that'll at least make people consider your product. And I mean, this is just one of those ones that is so interesting that I could see it getting the attention and getting people buying it just because it's so out there.
Oh, I
But
would.
if you want something unlike anything else you will buy anywhere, you would go for this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, I would definitely try something else from Altered State if I saw it at that point. I don't know if I would buy a bottle of anything from Altered State unless I went
Unless
there.
it was like, you know, when you go to, I hate to use Wiggle as an example, when you go to their store and they have half pints and pints of
Yeah.
stuff. Like that's one thing they do well is that you can buy smaller amounts of a lot of their stuff.
Yeah.
I'd like to try some more stuff from them, but I'd like to try it before I buy it.
Yes.
Right. And that's what I hope that they have some sort of distillery or store like Wiggle does. That's the marketing and the tasting and the tours. That's one thing they do really well. That I hope these guys do, but I haven't been to Erie.
I say I've been to Erie in a while.
I've actually never been up there to know. So like, if they do, I'd love to see if they got that part down. Because if they do, I'm sure they get sales off of people trying it.
Oh, I'm sure. And I mean, that's the thing too about a lot of craft distilleries is like people don't necessarily go there for quality stuff. They go there to try what they're making. Like, I would recommend everybody goes to Wiggle. I don't think that they make great spirits, but
Right. But
it's-
they're gonna make there's a
they
decent
have
chance they'll
unique
make
stuff.
something weird that you might find out you like.
and the experience itself is fun. Like if I buy a flight for $30 from them of like 5 different whiskeys.
You're gonna enjoy your time and you're gonna enjoy those little tastes even if you wouldn't buy a bottle.
Exactly. Like I enjoy the time like analyzing it and being with friends at Wiggle than I do spending $70 on a bottle from them.
Right.
Because let's be real, Wiggle overcharges on fucking everything.
Right. It is nice that you see their wheat whiskeys and stuff going down in price where it's
Yes.
around the 40 mark now.
I didn't
That's
know that.
very
That's
reasonable.
very nice.
Their prices for the regular stuff is in the 40s, which is a lot more reasonable for their stuff.
Yeah,
Because
they're
I would probably
like-
buy their wheat whiskey for 40.
yeah, they brought down what? They brought down the rye, they brought down their standard bourbon, and they brought down the wheat whiskey in
Right.
price, right?
Because
Right.
whenever I first started getting into whiskey, and my dad first started getting into whiskey with me, I bought him a bottle of the Wiggle bourbon as a gift,
Mm.
and it was one of those things where like it's fine. It's
And like
not
if you don't have
great,
to pay for it, like it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
like it's bad.
but I had to pay for it, and I like now seeing like the value that I could have gotten at
Now
that
seeing
price
like
range.
instead of buying that Wiggle bourbon, you could have bought him the Bullet 10 year, and he would have fucking loved it. And it's
I could have
so
bought him.
much
I could have
better.
bought him the fucking Bullet 10 year and bought myself a fucking 30 rack of fucking Yingling, and had a lot better time.
Oh, I will point blank say, like, the value of bourbon is crazy, and in a lot of things in life, you would think that corporate culture would ruin like the quality of a product.
It doesn't.
I personally think when it comes to bourbon, corporate made it better because now everybody has access to it.
And you can
Like-
get really good stuff for cheaper than you can at a craft distillery.
And
Like,
because they
craft
have- they
distillers
have
have to charge more to survive because
Well,
they
and
need to
because
sell.
and a lot of times the craft distilleries too, they don't age quite as long as the bigger companies.
Right, they
because
can't
the
afford
bigger
to.
companies have the overhead where they can age a bottle for 8 years, 9 years, and
Right,
not
it's
worry about it.
why you can get the Rebel Yell 14 because they're making all their money selling the cheap stuff to people who want the cheap stuff.
Because
And they can afford to experiment and
Yep.
not worry about it for 14
because like
years.
Wiggle, you know, they put all their money into you know starting these barrels, and these barrels have aged maybe 3-4 years, and they're like, okay, we need to pull these now because we need to sell
Right,
products.
it's
to
like
make
the only
money.
reason, like their bourbon is probably one of the longest aged things they have, and that's the minimum of 4. And I bet you they only age it 4.
Yep, they
And
do.
it makes me wish they would age their stuff longer because their flavor profiles have so much potential.
You have to remember too, whenever Wiggle first started, like 6 years ago, they were literally selling tiny little barrels and moonshine.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they sold. They sold it so that you could age your whiskey by yourself.
Right, which is why I do have my hopes up for them for the future.
Because I hope that
once they can start aging things.
I hope they have stuff set away aging right now that in 3-4 years they have some really kick-ass shit because it's aged longer.
A Wiggle 10-year wheated or wheat whiskey, I feel like
would be really good.
Knock it out of the park compared to their other stuff.
Well, yeah, in that circumstance, yeah, for sure.
Now, again, you'd be paying the premium until they are at a point where they can afford to not charge craft prices. But, I mean, to some people, there's an appeal in that because, you want to support these places and watch them come up with this stuff right in your backyard.
My issue with that is that if I'm going to do that, I would rather spend that kind of money on corporate bourbon and then spend that money also on craft beer, because craft beer...
I find craft beer to be better than craft spirits, for sure.
Right.
Like, I have not bought...
On average, for sure.
I bought, like, the biggest beer that I bought regionally lately was from Trogs, and they're still a craft brewery. Other than that, the past 8 months, I've only been buying stuff from local Pittsburgh, just, like, breweries.
Yeah, and you'll hate me for my cases of Yingling.
I'm fine with Yingling. I
well,
drink
Yingling
the
is
fuck out of
okay,
Yingling.
but my case is a PBR.
Although
I'll lose respect to you for PBR.
Duquesne is
Duquesne's
a cheap ass
really
fucking beer,
good.
and I love it. I love Pilsners though.
I'm really happy that they brought that back, because Duquesne Pilsner is actually a pretty damn good beer.
And I like it for, what is it, $19 for a 30 rack? Like,
something like that.
That is a really good, like, I can drink 6 of them and not feel bad about it.
It may not be a PA, but on the same
It is.
qualities. I know, I'm the one I'm about to talk about.
Oh. Okay.
Narragansett. It's another one of those ones where...
It's like Hams, where it's not terrible, but it's not great.
Right.
But
it's one of those get what you pay for things.
Yeah.
You're paying $20 for a 30.
At that point, if I'm going to do that, I would rather go with Coors Banquet, or I would rather get Genesee Honey Brown.
Fair. I would also, before I go Narragansett, I would go Made in PA and get Iron City or Yingling. But...
Oh, I would take Yingling in a heartbeat. I don't like Iron City. That may be sacrilegious for someone from Pittsburgh, but
it's hit or miss for me. Like, I have to be in a mood for it, which is why I can't really buy a 30 anymore.
We've gotten very off track here, but Aldrich State is very interesting.
Yes.
We have gotten off track, but I was gonna make this video kind of like it's gonna literally be like altered state and craft distilleries, because just the discussion, because it's a good discussion.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like, if we talk about craft beer too, like, it's a good point to make that, like, craft distilleries are on a very different level relative to craft beer. Like, craft beer to macro beer, craft beer on a heartbeat, craft liquor to established liquor.
There's a reason liquors are just become established.
Yes.
For beers, there's not. Usually, the reason is they found a way to make something sometimes decent, sometimes not cheap.
Mm. But I will say this, because vodka and gin are very easy to make, I'll buy local gin and local vodka.
Yeah, like the Ginzer and the Parking Chair vodka.
Oh, Parking Chair vodka is so good.
I know, and it's only $20.
It's so good.
I want to Photoshop the Bernie sitting on a chair under the Parking Chair logo.
I bet you that they do that at some point.
I bet you they use it as a mark. They use a drawing of it so that it's not copyrighted.
It's probably on their social. No, like, that's not copyrighted.
Well,
it's a meme.
It's a meme. You also can't straight up use someone's face in an advertisement without their permission. But
it's not Bernie. His face is covered.
He has a mask.
He's wearing his mask like a good boy.
It's not Bernie. His face is covered.
You can't tell if it's Bernie or not. He just may or may not be